Well, good morning, guys. It's absolutely amazing to be here. So my name is Ash Noah, and I work for the AICPA CIMA, which is the American and the global part of management accounting and the CPAs. My role is to develop training, development for finance leaders, for business leaders. So that's my role. I'm a former CFO, so I've been in your shoes. I've done what you guys do. I feel the pain. But I want to talk about a more painful topic this morning. And Romek, why don't you join me as well? If you want to introduce yourself quickly, I don't think you need introduction. But
hello, I'm Romek. And what I wanted to know is, as Tom just said that at 4 o'clock he asked me, could you step in? I was wondering where I was on the list of people that he asked to step in. Because I definitely wasn't number one. So anyone out there? Did he ask before he asked me?
You were absolutely number one, but
I wasn't. I guarantee I wasn't number one. I'm hoping I was lower than 7. That's my...
No, but it's absolutely fantastic to meet you and have the chat this morning. So this is pretty much a discussion. I was challenged by my CEO once when I took a bunch of numbers to him. He says, Ash, go away, take all these reports away. Can you come back with one slide with only words on it? So today we've done better. We've got slides with no words on it. Okay. So we want to talk about the opportunity that faces and that we have. And the opportunity is really around the leadership development. And we want to talk about transformative leadership development that will transform your GBSs. And
pushing people, pulling people. Yeah? Yeah?
That's why CIMA is different from ACCA, right? So we focus 80% of our qualification on that people and strategy side,
Brilliant.
right? On the business side. So only 20% is
I didn't
accounting.
prepare that, I promise. That wasn't a... But it's the greatest accountant will not be the future leader of GBS, right? Anyone disagree with that? Anyone? Hands up if you think I'm talking rubbish. The future leadership of GBS will be someone who is a great people person. You have a skill, you need the background, but the foreground, the front piece is about leading, right? And leading is not technically saying the deferred tax is 11, right? It's about going, guys, follow me, come with me. This is where we're going. This is the journey. Join the journey. Be part of the journey. Be the journey. Get me? All of that. That's what leadership's got to be about, right?
You've already jumped to the next slide, which is fantastic. Great segue, because you talked about leading, and someone told me once that if you're leading and no one's following, you're just going for a walk. So it's, you know...
I go for a lot of walks.
Exactly. So, yeah, building leadership capability and changing them to be people-focused, focused on strategy, focused on being these transformative leaders. So we do want to get to that and give you a framework, perhaps, on how you go about doing this. But anything to add there?
I work for PwC, as most of you know, but I don't, well, I'm retired. So I'm not a consultant anymore, I'm unemployed. But if someone said to me, you're going to start your own consulting firm, what would you do? I tell you what I would do. First of all, it's called IGS, Intensive Google Search, would be a core of my development process. But what I would do is, before going into a meeting to talk to someone about R2R, P2P, O2C, hire to retire, I would just go to Google and look at the 10 biggest things in that sector, what's going on, right? Because that's all you need to know. The much more, that's 10%, the 90% has got to be pulling people, developing the future leadership. And my big point I want to make, and I'm going to keep making it, is everyone in this room, you have to change what you think is the future leader. Because the future leader is not being brilliant at accounts payable or payroll. That's not the future leader. There is no GBS leader in the world right now who is an expert in any of those areas. What they're experts in is leadership. And so you might be a great leader, but that's not enough. Your job is to train the future leaders. And what I want to say, and I'm going to keep saying it, is your job now is to extend that view of what is leadership. And it's not expertise in one field. It's a much wider thing. So it's not this way, it's this way. This way. And it's about giving people the skill set to develop beyond a process. It's not a process anymore. Yeah?
So this way, going across, is what we'll get to, finally, in terms of how do we approach this. But you hit on a point around, and I want to connect the value creation story to the story about finance or accounting. If you really look at the value of a company, and this is a business view, about 10% of the value is in the P&L and balance sheet. So if your net assets represent 10% of your enterprise value. The other 90% is not in your balance sheet. It's not in your P&L. It's not in your cash flow, right? That's in your human capital, intellectual capital, which is also residing in humans, and social and relationship capital. So if you want to engage in these types of capitals, it's not the finance processes that are going to get you there. That's the other way of looking at the across.
Cool.
Yeah?
Agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, so what kind of skills are we talking about? Yes, it's going across the business. It's not siloed. Rather, it's multifunctional. It's hybrid. How do we develop some of this is where we want to get to, because we don't want to leave you with just all the challenges being thrown at you. So
That was my intention.
How do we get there? Right.
Do CIMA.
The how. Thank you. No. It's, how did you develop your leaders?
David Paul led me. That's the way I like to look at it, yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
I think, well, like I said, for 25 years, I kept thinking it was about being an accountant, and being a really good accountant. And for the last 5 years, I didn't do any accounting, and I just kept thinking it's about people skills and developing the people to be better at leading people. I always think, again, unfortunately, in PwC, there's this level, you start as an associate, etc., and there's this, you get in the middle, and it's called a manager. And when everyone gets to that level, I always say, what are you managing? What are you managing? And it is not the process, right? What are you managing? You're managing people. So you go from being an accountant, God forbid, sorry, but accountant, oh my God. Whenever I go through the US and they go, sir, and what are you coming here for? And I'm coming for a conference. And what do you do? I'm an accountant. Yeah, please keep going. Yeah? No one ever stops an accountant, because no one in their right mind, as a drug dealer, money launderer, would pretend to be an accountant, because who the hell pretends to be a fucking accountant, right?
You haven't seen The Accountant,
No,
the movie?
really. I have seen it, actually. Yeah, he's not an accountant. It's not about being an accountant, right, guys? It cannot be, as a leader. If you're sitting at home and going, do you know, I'm a really good accountant, stay at home. Yeah? If you're sitting at home going, do you know what, I'm not worried about the accounts, I'm worried about Jim and Julie and Evelina and Kashan. If you're worrying about that, you're doing something really good, guys, right? Because if you're worrying about the people, you're worrying about the thing you should be worrying about.
People focus, for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. So unlocking the opportunities, what we're trying to get to is, how do you go about unlocking this opportunity? How do you get from siloed to being business focused? And what I wanted to introduce to you is we're going to do a deeper dive later on at 1:30. If you do want to get into this framework of going across the business, is asking questions like, what is the purpose of my organization? What is the purpose of my enterprise? Do you actually understand the core purpose of your enterprise? And a good question to ask is, if your enterprise disappeared today, would society be happy about it? Or would they actually miss you? I mean, that's kind of the fundamental
Would they notice?
Would they notice? Would they miss you, right?
Yeah.
So, as leaders, we need to understand purpose. We need to understand strategy. How do we deliver that purpose in terms of the strategy? Risk and opportunities, risk management, opportunity management. These are the things that develop leaders. And these are the views that leaders need to have that end-to-end process view across the business. Are you building culture? Are you enabling innovation? Are you enabling a culture of disruption? Those are the kind of things which will make you more people-focused. Governance. There are elements of governance that we are involved in as GBS leaders, but what are the other elements of governance? How can you support the board? Are you thinking about that? How can you support your chief executive officer, the CEO? And finally, this performance is not about the performance that we're managing of the processes, but this performance is the business performance. Are you delivering your purpose? So we talked about from purpose to performance, and this cycle is what I want to get into. And this is really from a new approach in terms of an integrated approach to business management and leadership. And we'll take a deeper dive into that. And it's about understanding your business model.
Ash, I can interrupt, please.
Sure.
On the performance one, I think this is a really, really important one. I'll never forget, I was in India, I was at a client, and they gave a presentation of performance. Yeah, how's it going in the center? And they showed slide, a graph, 11 going to 12, 11% going to 14%, and all of this. Slide. And obviously I fell asleep because it was so boring. And I woke up and I said, yeah, but how's everybody? How is everyone? And they went dead quiet, and they go, we don't have a slide for that. And it was like, no, I know. I don't want a slide. How is everyone? And for me, if I think about running a centre, being in a centre and everything, the only statistic I actually care about now is turnover. Honest. If there's one statistic I want to control and be really conscious of, it will be turnover. And I tell you why. Is for me, performance, so how well are we doing, will be driven by people being there for more than 6 months. So the longer they stay, they're going to do a better job, right? Obviously. The longer they're there, they're going to do a better job. I don't have to retrain them. There's not going to be errors made because the guy's been there for 2 weeks, yeah? Because they've been there for 10 years. And so that ability to keep great people, keep them entertained, keep them involved, develop them, find time for them, etc., for me, is performance, right? So if you've got 37% turnover, bring it down to a statistic of who are the important people, and if the number's high, then you're doing something seriously wrong, and get control of it. I'm hitting all my KPIs, 100% of my KPIs, everyone's super happy, and I have 37% turnover. Trust me, you should not be sleeping. You should be really worried. There's not hitting all my KPIs and having 11% turnover, I would be sleeping no problem at all. I'd be a little bit worried about the KPIs, a little bit, but I would know that my team are there, so we will cope. I'd be more worried about not having the team. That would be my number one worry. So I think of performance. It's not 150 statistics, it's turnover for me would be the absolute one I'd be looking at.
And that's spot on, because if you think about the intangible capital I was talking about, your intellectual capital and your human capital, if that's walking out of the door at the rate of 30%, you're destroying significant value. And we don't see it in the terms of value. We see it in terms of, okay, we've lost X number of people and we can just rehire them. Yeah. But think about the intellectual capital, the social and relationship capital, and the intellectual capital you're losing. It's significant. And so that performance results in everything else being done in terms of managing these other intangible capitals, especially your human capital, social capital, relationship capital, and your intellectual capital. That's performance, really.
Good.
So, well said. And so, are you familiar with your business model in terms of your business? Do you know how your business defines value, creates value, delivers value, and captures value? That really is what business guidance and business leaders are looking for. And it's this type of leadership which is transformative, where you become an integral part of delivery of value for your organization. And I think that's what we're looking at in terms of leadership and that kind of transformative leadership. So we'll take a deeper dive into these things, but if you want to conclude with a few words of wisdom and pearls of wisdom, that'd be great.
No, but I'll say a few things. I think your job, everyone in this room, your job is not delivering the KPIs. It's not telling your boss how brilliant you are and you delivered 11. If you're doing that, you don't be in your job, honestly. Your job, guys, everyone in this room, is about developing the next people to take over from you, but they've got to be much more this way inclined across the business, end-to-end process, people-focused. You know, it's all about developing the people. Our only asset, you said it, the only asset is not the car parked outside and a PC on the thing. The only asset we all have are our people, right? Correct?
Especially in the GBSs.
I only think in GBS, sorry. In GBS, the only asset, guys, we have is the people that are in the building. And unfortunately, not many of them in the building. That's a bit of a problem. Different topic coming up later. But it is about the people, and your job is to find the right people and keep the right people and develop them. That's the big one, the develop bit. Keep them entertained, find the route for each of them, the right people, the best people, find what makes them click, happy, and deliver great stuff. And more of those you get, the easier your job is. But the future is the people, but you've got to give more time to it. It's less now about the process, much more about the people, and post-COVID, definitely.
You're translating the business model. Every time you say across, it is really understanding, going beyond just your process that you're involved in, but delivering. So I'm not going to have any final words because I'll see you, some of you later on at 1:30. But if there are any questions, challenges, comments.
He always has a question. I think he's getting the microphone back off it.
Well, now you gave me the mic. So it's interesting to hear you talk about an inspirational leader and taking the team through that journey. How does that relate to the profile of a person? So, if you look at Myers-Briggs, if you look at DISC profiling, does that mean that all of our leaders in GBS need to be, the yellows of the world, need to be inspiring, motivational, and not technical, not the blues, not the people that can count beans very well? What does that mean in terms of profiling?
You know the answer, right? The answer is a mixture. Of course it is, yeah? If you go for all the yellows, I don't know what the yellow is, but let's just say they're yellows. If you go for all yellows, you end up in a bad place because everyone's yellow. So you need the blues, which are the count. I think you have to get that mixture, of course. I always think that, I've interviewed, I actually don't know how many people, but I wouldn't say 1,000, but more than hundreds I've interviewed. I always walk out the interview, and if the person entertained me, and I walked out with a smile on my face, I'd more likely to hire them. If they bored the pants off me, I don't want to hire them. Yeah? That for me was always that guidance of hire and not hire, was much more walking out going, yeah, I can see. And not looking at them like me, luckily, but much more that they've got passion. Passion would always be my takeaway. So not qualified would not be an issue, but passion for what they're about to do would be a much bigger thing, yeah? I would say hire people with passion and group people around you with a passion, but not the same passion, yeah? Different ones would be probably the thing.
Anybody in the back?
It surely is hybrid, and every one of you in this room is not a yellow. I can guarantee you that. And I think a lot of this is directed at people in the room because you guys are leading your organizations into the future, and how you develop yourself and your people, it's, both are important. So it is hybrid for sure, and it's a mix. But I mean, you can ask yourself the question, what kind of a leader are you? And do you want the same type of leaders as yourself?
Not you, Rakesh, really.
No. I was just saying
10 Rakesh's.
every one of us asks that question. Am I leading, or people following me, firstly, and then do I need to display am I displaying the right leadership qualities, and do I want these same qualities in my people? So,
Let me ask you a question. And more questions, please speak up. But how is the other GBSs in Central Europe and Baltics doing on a global scale in terms of what you're talking about, developing those leaders? Are we seeing that? You've seen lots of the companies, you guys both see lots of companies and executives. Is it kicking up to that board level, or is it still sort of not quite there yet?
I'd say we all should be there, and we're clearly not. So I think there's a massive gap between being process-led as an organization and being hub-led. So I'm in Krakow and we're fine. Is old school, and we've got to realize that at a conference recently, there's a lady called Deborah Copps who's a super guru in this space. Super. She's one of the only people I ever listened to. She said, everyone in the room, if you wrote your CV, I wouldn't hire you. Yeah? And if you think being the hub leader is success, if that's it, then you're really not, you're not driving yourself in the right direction. Because the future leadership in GBS, to be the GBS lead, the big job, is you are very unlikely to be a hub lead. You need to be a process lead. You need to be the change agent, not the administrator. Yeah, that's what she said, and she's a super guru, and I agree with her. Now, in the old days, I was a hub lead, and it was my dream, and I got there, and I did it for about a year, and I went, this is it. Yeah, this is it. I'm in charge of a center. Brilliant. I think that's not right where this industry is going. I think a hub leader is going to be going down from a pyramid going down, and a process lead is going to be going up. And I think that's my point about what we need to develop our people, is to be more process focused end to end, and more about people not in your hub. So it's not leading people who sit next to you. It's not about me and you. It's about 11 people in Mumbai and 22 in New York, all over the world. I lead them. So it's about being truly global, end-to-end process. So that change is what I think is the big challenge for us. And we're not there. And in fact, I'd say we're crap at it. I'll be really honest. But it's the challenge we have.
Good. Yes.
Yeah, quick question. I guess is that a question and a challenge, Ash, for you. So formal training, and I went through the CIMA training, so obviously I'm smarter than Romek. Formal training, is that really the way to develop the skills that people need today? Can you teach the capabilities that you're looking for?
So if you look at a formal approach to developing competency, and a competency is developed because you have skills, and skills are developed because you have certain behaviors, right? So the way we approach it is only 10% of a competency is formally, technical training imparted. So, but you need that for a base. You then build on that, and the formula is 10, 20, 70, 20% being mentoring, and 70% being experiential. So you've got to give your people that experience in leadership. You've got to give your people the experience across silos so that they do get the broader experience. So I would say 90% of that competence comes from mentoring and experiential learning. But if you don't have the 10%, it might be really difficult to get that.
Yeah.
The GBSs in CEE, is it generally setups which are cost center setups or P&L setups? And which way do you see this going? Because we see more and more that companies are looking at their own in-house captives and saying, I'm not going to send work to you only because, you know, you belong to the mothership. Prove your competitiveness for it. How does it work here, and what's the trend, you think?
Unfortunately, whenever anyone says to me, but I can do it more cheaply, my immediate answer is go there. Just fuck off, basically, yeah? Because it's a cheap shot, it's bullshit, it's not true, right? So that's a cheap shot that you can't, there's no defense against it. I think that if you're in that discussion, you're in the wrong discussion. Because I think what I should be showing them is that the people behind me, or in front of me in actual fact, are so good that there is no question. They're so capable, they're so good at what they do, that no one notices they're not in New York sitting next to me, the big boss. They're actually in Krakow or Bangalore or wherever, that you don't even notice where they are or not where they are. For me, that's the big bit, right? So it's about the, and you hear this more and more. Anyone who's a true GBS leader in the world, you talk to them and you say to them, what's the big thing? And they go, having great people, not having cheap people. No one says it's cheap, no one. Everyone who's good at this will say having great people is the big thing, the asset, yeah? Not cheap. Yeah. I completely agree. But you can't create the value without great people, right? So unfortunately, there is no great people, load of rubbish, yeah?
Peter, okay. Ladies first.
It's not Ladies' Day. That was yesterday.
It's questionable. Romek, I have a question, and I would like you to explore a little bit. What is the relationship between trust and leadership? Because there is a lot of discussion about trust, regaining trust, gaining trust, and so on. How do you see trust and leadership of a GBS? Trust from employees' perspective, society perspective, and probably larger group?
It's a super duper question. Honestly, I don't know the answer to it, because I've never sat there thinking, do they trust me? I never thought about it in my life, ever, right?
Should we ask
I don't know.
ourselves?
I never thought about it, because I think be true to yourself. And you trust me because I stand by my values, and my value would be do the right thing. I would always try to do the right thing. Now, you don't trust me. I don't know how do you build trust other than doing the right thing and believing you're doing the right thing? No? It's about your own confidence maybe a little bit, but about being true to your own values as an individual, not my company values. I've never run my life by PwC says do this. We have a corporate statement. I don't even know what it is. I couldn't care less what it is. I have my own values, and I work for PwC. That's the way I would look at that. Sorry, but that's maybe you should keep your company value on.
So so my translation to this is what was important for me as a person 10 or 20 years ago, it remains important today and probably for the future because these are my values.
Yeah, the world changes, but your core value as a human being should, I think, be the same thing, yeah? I think. We change a little bit, but not 100%. No?
Yeah, so my question, or more kind of a thought, is do we have examples of someone who is that black swan, who actually has managed the end-to-end while then continuing to lead and get into that position? So are there any companies that have actually got that down as a fine art? What is the secret sauce? And when you mentioned about interviewing people that you, let's say, get on with, I think you're referring more to EQ versus IQ.
Yeah, good.
And I think a lot of people hire based on the EQ, this kind of empathetic value that they get and that click. But God help us if you end up hiring lots of people like yourself. Then it would be a complete disaster.
God. Yeah.
But the question again is, are there any companies that have managed to, because I've been a process owner for 6 years. I've led a hub of 2,000 plus people. But, you know, I've had those roles, and I preferred the hub as opposed to the process. Sorry. It was more fun.
Yeah.
It was more interaction with people. Whereas the process is more technical, and you got lots of things, compliance, all the things you mentioned there, governance. So it gets a little bit tricky. Not shying away from it, but just saying that one is more fun than the other. Yeah, and I want to work
and I like
for fun.
Yeah.
So I was with a bunch of GBS leaders yesterday, around 12 of them, and we had a discussion about, and this came up from them, it wasn't led by me, was there were two companies there that were saying, we are fully integrated into the mothership, we are not called a GBS anymore. So I think that's kind of an ultimate state to be in, where you're not seen as a GBS, but you're seen as an integral part of the business, and there's no walls around the GBS. But I think that's the end state, perhaps. And there were two leaders, and I can give you the names of them privately, but I'm happy to talk to you about that. So, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Ash,
very much.
Romek,
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Super. Very well done.